I will move to the updates by the Netherlands delegation. Since we have the Ministry of Agriculture here, Mr. Marcel van Nijnatten, Ministry of Agriculture, Nature and Food Safety. I would like to invite you to do an update on your expectations from the stocktaking moment. Food quality, I should say, sorry.
Food quality, Nico. Thanks. And thanks everybody for joining this call and for having us as government inform you on what we bring to the Food System Summit. I think it's important to be in contact. And let me start by an open invitation for you all to feed us, to give us your thoughts, so that we are able to incorporate them in our government policies and government interventions in Rome. We will go to Rome with a delegation from both the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Development Cooperation and the Ministry of Agriculture and Native Food Quality. Unfortunately, we won't have a minister present. That's because of the time slot that FAO has chosen. It's difficult, of course, at the end of July to have a minister travel to Rome, especially since our Minister van der Waal is traveling next week already to Rome for the FAO conference. So for a minister to travel to Rome 2 times within a month was difficult for us to arrange that. However, we will have a fairly big delegation going to Rome. We intend to be very active. There are a number of side events we will take part in. That program is being developed now. We think indeed the stocktake comes at a very apt moment. It is 2 years after the Food System Summit. The Food System Summit was a completely digital one, as you know, and we were invited to come up with national pathways. And I think it's very opportune now that we can come together all together in person in Rome to be able to share our experiences. And I really look forward to hearing all the experiences from different countries, from actually all over the globe. I think that's really important. As we learned from the Food System Summit, and we learn every day, I would say, the food system is really in need of a change and in need of addressing a number of issues that are posed to the food system. Of course, it's food security, nutrition security, but also challenges regarding water quality, quantity, climate change, and so on. And the food systems will need to adapt to that. It's very important that we share experiences. And I can tell you from a couple of trips I made that as soon as you travel abroad, coming from the Dutch government, you will be approached by everybody asking you what's happening in the Netherlands. So I look forward to actually explaining what's happening in the Netherlands with our own food system, if you want, and the changes we are about to make, the challenges we face. We intend to be very open about it, in the sense that we know where we need to go. I just explained it in terms of what goes for the Netherlands. It's about the nitrogen, it's about water and climate change. We're not hiding from the goals we have to set. Our minister has been very clear on that in the negotiations. He's now setting those same goals again in Parliament as we speak, and as we have tractors moving by the ministry. So what we need to do is clear the way there, and we're not running away from that, is very difficult indeed. It is hard to bring those challenges together and to make sure that you deliver towards those challenges and for farmers and indeed the entire food system chain, food system beyond chain as well, for say making an income, making it long-term sustainable. These are difficult things. We had hoped to present a national pathway in the sense that we were working towards an agricultural agreement with the entire food system in the Netherlands. However, that fell apart last week. So we will be able to give our partners an update, explain what we are doing in the Netherlands, what our goals are, and also what the challenges we face in reaching those goals with our partners. So that is basically what we will do from the Ministry from Agriculture, Nature, Food Quality. We also work, of course, with other countries to help them achieve their goals. It's very important for us. And we are developing a three-pronged approach. One is on food security and climate. A second pillar is water and biodiversity. And a third one is on income. So the perspective for farmers to actually produce. So I think, Nicole, I will leave it at that and pass on to my colleagues from Development Cooperation.
Thank you, Marcel, for this update. And really good to have you here and also connect the Netherlands reality with the UN reality. Please, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Jeroen Reijnierse, would you like to add?
Yes, sorry, I had a little problem. Yeah, thanks. I will be a bit more brief than Marcel, which makes sense because the most important thing there in the Stocktake is, of course, what we do in the Netherlands in terms of our national pathway dialogue and agreement. So that is the main thing. From the development cooperation perspective, maybe to add that maybe three things that we focus on in this whole process. First is that we are still, because there has been some debate about the importance of this whole process and how it relates to other things that are there, like the CFS, etc. We've been and still are supportive of this whole process, and one of the ways to make that support also a little bit more concrete is this, and it was mentioned a few times, this foster program that we support, which is implemented by IFAD, Foresight for Food, and Wageningen University, focusing on a limited number of countries and trying to support their national dialogue and their pathway and implementation of that. So it is a multi-year support program. Secondly, we are of course active, and that is very much aligned to, let's say, the traditional work that we do, which is being active in these coalitions that are part of the so-called ecosystem of support. So we are in coalitions together with colleagues from Ministry of Agriculture on seed, on agroecology, food waste, zero hunger, healthy diets. We are looking at the school meal coalition. We are not yet part of that, but considering that. So that is ongoing. And thirdly, which is something that I think is also strategically important when it comes to showing support for the whole process. But let me say, we didn't make up our mind yet, but it was mentioned by Stefanos that the SDG Trust Fund is now opening a specific window for food systems. So it is not a big money thing. It's about a catalytic investments that will be done on the national level to support the national pathways and their implementation. So we are looking at that, and hopefully we will get in Rome more of a sense and a clue of what this window is and what it can do in order to have a decision on that one. So those are the three main things that we look at when we are in Rome. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly, Jeroen. Reijnierse, very clear, and also good that you refer to the different coalitions, the different international coalitions on topics like seed or food loss and waste. People ask to me, why did you put that not high on the agenda of this Dutch briefing for the network? And we said we focus this time on the country processes, while at the same time we know that these international coalitions are also part of the whole conversation. Thanks so far. Let me open the floor for questions that people may have for the Netherlands delegation. Please raise your hands. I see a hand of Suzanne van Tilburg, Rabobank. Please go ahead, Suzanne.
Yeah, just two brief questions. We noticed there's a lot of focus on climate, nature and equity, but there's one big absent theme, which is nutrition. So I think it is important to raise this. We will certainly as Rabobank try to elevate this topic in Food System Summit. I know some others in this call will do as well. Also in the uprun to COP28, because we think the nutrients versus only emissions agenda is quite crucial, and it's time that we keep this incorporated in the overall food systems approach. And second, so I would like to hear from the Dutch delegation if they share that vision and if they could perhaps also elevate their voice on that. And secondly, the private sector engagement, it's truly quite, a pity that there's such a big gap still between the country engagement and the private sector engagement. We see the UAE for COP28 is doing a lot of effort to bring these much stronger together, but in the Food System Summit coming upwards, it's sad that there's still many opportunities missed to bring these two together, and that's resulting in coalitions being merged in a side event, private sector being totally absent in those coalitions. So yeah, I just want to flag this, that on behalf of the private sector, we really feel concern, because we do need business solutions as well as policy interventions. Back to you.
Thanks for these two questions, Suzanne van Tilburg. Could Marcel or Jeroen answer to those questions?
Let me start with tackling the last one on the private sector engagement. You know, Suzanne, that as the Dutch government, we are very much in favor of incorporating private sector in our discussions. We try to do that in the Netherlands as well. We really think it's important, because those are, if you look at the food system in a country, or even at the regional or global level, you would need those private sector actors to actually make things happen on the ground for delivering actually on the goals that you set. So yes, for us that's a no-brainer that you would need the private sector. That we will actually push there. We always have pushed that involvement. That also goes for the financing part, of course. We not only on private sector, youth came up. We think that's important. The voice of women. These are really important things that you need. You take that really holistic approach, that you involve all those stakeholders. We think that's really important. So we will also actively encourage their participation and in the process. Jeroen, maybe you can go into the nutrition part.
And let me maybe start where you ended by referring to the food system as I mean, there are a lot of issues that always come up, but this is really about, the integrated approach. Now, it can always be that, I hear many voices about some parts of the system being ignored or not being enough engaged, etc., etc. I always find that a bit difficult when it comes to nutrition. At least from our side, this has our full attention and will have our full attention in the whole process. We are also most active in coalitions that actually focus on nutrition. There's of course the micronutrient forum coming up, the nutrition for growth. So there's a whole set of events also on nutrition parallel in this, but point taken, and we keep it certainly in mind in Rome and in the follow-up.
Yeah, thank you both, and also to Rabobank for the question. I'd like to continue a bit on the stakeholder participation, if you allow me, and that's not necessarily a question directly for the Dutch delegation, but a question for our international guest. Earlier on, there was a question by Bart de Steenhuis-Pieters of Wageningen University, asking the three countries, how do you assure in the three countries that the key stakeholders needed for food system transformation are on the table, even those who may not feel very tempted or believe to benefit from transparency and their interests, etc. This is again on stakeholders. Could we have some comments from the different country teams on this stakeholder engagement and how to ensure you have the right ones on the table? Yes, the South Sudan team want to comment?
Yes, the process started with engagement, actually, because the government and the United Nations agencies, the European Union, and even the universities, we start the engagement because we believe in partnership to address issues like the food system transformation. So up to now, we have actually cascaded our engagement at the state level because we don't want to leave the state behind. So the engagement now has brought in the local government and the state government together to come up with very clear pathways that will actually transition the food system from the situation where we are to an acceptable and food system that can provide sufficient, safe, and healthy food for all. So engagement is there. We are not leaving anybody. So now the idea even is to go as far as strengthening the private sector. The thinking now is actually to establish the TVETs so that all actors along the value chain should be actually informed and empowered. So the agro-businesses, which are very key, and this is the sector which is weak in the link of our food system. So we wanted to build their strength through the TVETs. So these are type of engagement that we are actually getting everybody on board. And as Dr. Konstantin have just mentioned on the slides, that we are working on transforming the Food Security Council, because the council is the highest decision making on the issues of the food system in the country. So this council needs a bit of transformation to strengthen the governance system in the country. So engagement is there and everybody is actually on board. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very kindly. Can I maybe ask, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt a little bit if you allow me, because I see a hand from Dr. Rudaba from Bangladesh, and I'd like to give her the floor. Please, yeah. Dr. Rudaba.
Thank you. Just to highlight your question, thank you very much, Nicole. So I think, as we said, that the macro, meso, and micro level all needs to be involved, because often we talk about macro and we need to have a bottom-up approach as well. So in our processes, as Dr. Augustine has highlighted, that it is very critical that during the preparation of the pathway, we include everybody. But as we are progressing, we are learning more and more how to integrate the public sector, private sector, academia, civil society, youth group, indigenous groups. So it's a process. It cannot be done within a short time. It's a process and progress, and that's why over time we have included as many as possible. But I think it is very important to go beyond egos and logos, because when you talk about youth, youth is part of the country. So it's people summit and the country has to lead. So as I think it is a process that we are following with the 3 Rome-based and the government leading the process. We are making sure this is very neutral and everybody comes and also share the discomfort areas and talk about the real process. Over to Mandira for a few points. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudaba. Dr. Mandira, you want to comment as well?
Yeah, regarding the stakeholder management, one thing is really important that we have learned through the process, that for example, if I focus on the involvement of multiple ministries, now we have 18 ministries with this whole process. We need to do is to highlight and orient them that where is their role and where is the food system highlighted in their national plan and national budget. So once this is this message is delivered to them and they are convinced with the process, this actually help them to get involved in. And same is applicable for the private sector, for the research organization, for the youth and other indigenous community as well. And finally, I would like to mention that for these, that all the countries, that more than 100 countries have the national pathway documents. How to implement that and how to get the result by 2030, we need to have an operational plan and the focused and clear mechanism to monitor the progress that Bangladesh is currently working on to develop an operational plan of action and the monitoring framework. That these two are also the following documents that will be helpful, I believe. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Lots of information to share, and I see also some similarities with, for example, Jordan. And I saw the hand of Dr. Walid. Would you like to comment, or please, if you may, you can do it briefly, since we don't have much time.
Sure. I think PSE, private sector engagement, is very important, and I am sure at this time all governments are very keen to involve the private sector. This doesn't need to be stressed. I think despite it's so important. What's important is once we bring this private sector, or even whoever groups, small farmers, others, we should take them seriously. It's not, they are first to identify who is coming to this meeting and why. What we want to hear from them. We should bring the right people who can convey them and democratically elected people so that they can represent people. We don't want to bring the people who says what we want them to say, frankly. And more importantly, when we ask them next time to come to a meeting or to a workshop to participate, they should feel that whatever they said in the former meetings are taken care seriously by whoever, mainly the governments and others, invited them so. And that's very important if we want to sustain the private sector engagement and the private sector response to our invitations to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Highlighting also the quality of the engagement, indeed. Thank you. I realize we only have 5 minutes left. I did not formally conclude the part with the Dutch delegation, but thanks a lot, of course, Marcel van Nijnatten and Jeroen Reijnierse for your contributions and sharing. Let me share a few final updates from the NFP team on this exact engagement, since I'd like to, before we close the call, just show you that we gathered a bit of information on which organizations, companies and institutions will be sending one or more delegates to the Rome stocktaking event. You can see the list here. I won't name them one by one. Some of them have spoken in this call already. And possibly if you also have plans and your name is not yet here, please let NFP know, because we will also continue communicating about this. And then maybe the next slide shows a bit of the side events that different organizations plan to undertake. We have seen in the chat of today that True Price will also host a side event. We have heard from the Ministry of Agriculture that they are part of different side events. And we have heard from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that they are active in several coalitions who will also host side events, so that will be much. But these three are with SNV, Wageningen University and NFP as leads from the Netherlands, and you can see the list of the co-organizers. This is just to remind you that many different of these things will be developed in the near future. And to conclude this, NFP will provide a report of today's conversation on our website, but we will also try to continue listing a bit of these agenda information and sharing that with you. So please continue following our website on which you can find that. If I can come to, I don't know whether I see a final hand or a final question of someone, because this is what I wanted to share. So yeah, maybe let me summarize our conversation so far, even if it's difficult, but I think we have seen lots of energy and interest in the stock-taking moments. We have heard very interesting and information-dense presentations from countries, Bangladesh, Jordan, South Sudan, on the progress made and on the upcoming reports and synthesized documents that they are preparing for the stock-taking moment. We've also heard from the Netherlands government, who plans to go share the Netherlands experience, even if that is not a very easy experience recently, still sharing experience and open to being fed with thoughts. We've heard from the Netherlands engagement in different countries. Overall, there was a lot of reference to the need to have a joint vision. If you have a joint vision for the food system transformation, you can work together, and the need for policy coherence and merging different policy domains into a holistic, integrated whole, which I think many countries are doing, and I think all countries are recognizing the importance of. Then I recall that Mr. Foutiou says the expectation of the Secretary General is not just merging policies as an end in itself, but it's really about deals that need to happen, and the outcome would be possibly very concrete deals and concrete actions, but also possibly some outcomes around the trust funds. And we've heard from the Netherlands delegation that they're open to also participate in those conversations, not only on the trust funds, but also on the concrete steps that can be set and in which the Netherlands can play a role. So that's, I think, and we have had many references to regulatory frameworks, to the role of indicators and to constant monitoring. And I think the optimism of this call is that we hear that in the different countries there is progress, and there is indeed joint thinking, lots of stakeholder engagement with quality, and there is indeed also progress on the actions made. And we are aware very much that, for example, in a country like South Sudan, but also in the region that Jordan is based in, and in any country, Bangladesh, Netherlands, everywhere, there are serious concerns, of course, about food security, about nutrition security. So we also have this responsibility to accelerate. And I think there is a strong commitment from all here to contribute to that acceleration. I think that is from my side. Is there any final hand of someone who wants to say something, take the floor before we close the call? Since I was talking a lot in the final minutes. Yes, Marcel, please.
Yes, I would like to thank NFP for organizing this meeting. From the government, we think it's important to be open, and so that our stakeholders and everybody can knows what we will be doing and can contact us if they wish so. So thanks to NFP for organizing this.
Yeah, thank you. Well, maybe, and then, of course, thank you a lot for your openness. And as NFP, we have our website, which is called NFP Connects. It's an interactive website. So I also propose that we will use this for the updates on this call, the updates on the agenda for the side events at the stock-taking moment. Of course, the upper link is for the program of the stock-taking moment itself, but we can use our website also for gathering some input, if any, if you want to share your thoughts. Thanks a lot, and